You remember that experience in the movie theater where the actress is so overcome by emotions that her knees buckle and she falls dramatically to the floor? If you're anything like me, you probably thought, that's just Hollywood, right? And then it happened. It was February 4th, 2015, the 1-year anniversary of the death of my nephew, CJ. At the age of 19, he died in a tragic car crash. I was in Lewis, Delaware, walking on the beach. There wasn't anyone else around. It was February. It was freezing. I picked Lewis to commemorate his beautiful spirit because that's where I saw him the happiest and the most like himself. That was 6 years before. He was 13 at the time, having the time of his life at my wedding. I remember watching him insist on hugging every one of our guests. He jumped between rocks looking for crabs. He was free and happy there. It was the perfect place to honor the joy he brought to my life. As I walked along the shoreline, alone, I dropped a few tears as I talked to him. Nothing big, just a few tears as I recalled some of the memories and told him how special he will always be. Those of you who have experienced loss, I just know you can relate. As I walked along the shoreline, a couple miles or so, I turned to walk back, and I got this text message from my sister, with a few photos taken from the side of the accident. They had just released the most beautiful bouquet of balloons, black and neon green, his two favorite colors. The pictures were stunning. They pulled me right into the moment and made his forever absence that much more real. Just like in Hollywood, my knees buckled as I fell to the sand and cried my eyes out. I didn't know emotional pain could be so physical. My heart felt like it was exploding. Waves of explosion. As the pain grew in intensity, I didn't know what to do. Do I fidget with my phone? Do I cry louder? One thing's for sure. The last thing I wanted to do was to feel it. And yet somehow I knew I needed to stay in that moment and let the waves of pain have their way with me until they were done and my strength returned. Actually, not unlike Hollywood, I walked away from that experience stronger. There was a faith and a hope that came from the depths of that experience. Anyone who's ever lost anyone or anything of significance knows this pain. Exhausted? Maybe. But somehow lighter, much lighter. Free actually might be a better word. A completeness I didn't understand in the moment and I'm still coming to grips with today. After that experience, the waves and the grief, just to stay present in that moment and let the freedom come. See, most of us don't understand how to process the pain that we feel. The waves may come over us and they may take a hold of us and we don't know how to move forward from that moment. There was in that moment, that faith and that hope that came and the waves that came, there was this trust. Man, there was just a few days after I came back from Lewis, I was chatting with a client of mine, and just as we wrapped up a coaching session, I shared a little bit about this experience, and as I started to share, her eyes began to well. And then the biggest flood of tears began rushing down her face as she started to share about the death of her 16-year-old son. 16 years before in a drunk driving accident. He was a drunk driver. After 16 long years, she had still not allowed herself permission to process the pain. No wonder her health, her relationship with her other 2 children were suffering so greatly as she turned to alcohol to avoid the tsunami of pain, pretending to be okay. In that moment, time froze. The bustling city fell silent as she gave herself permission to release and reclaim her life. You see, as we muster the courage to face the sun, the shadows fall behind us. As we face our harsh reality, the truth, the illusions, they lose their strength and we get our power back. As we face the sun, the shadows, they fall behind us. Having sat with grief, I knew it would pass and there would be an opening and she'd be free to live and to love. And I am so happy to share with you, she is well on her way today. Having sat with grief, see, the problem with grief, sadness, anger, even rage is that we don't know how to use them. Instead, they often use us. I'm willing to bet my right arm that throughout grades K through 12, not a single person in this room ever took a course on how to process pain. It's not your fault, of course. It doesn't exist. We don't teach it. But why? We're 1,000 times more likely to experience emotional pain than we are, say, a problem we'd use calculus or algebra to solve. Today I'm going to share with you how to process pain. Your wait, it's over. I dare say I'm going to share with you how you personally can profit from pain. See, most people treat pain like a burning building. They run away as fast as they can. Today I want to encourage you to do the opposite, to run toward your pain. Like a firefighter, run toward your burning buildings and become your own hero. Think back to a time when you experienced pain. Something big, something small. Death, divorce, the person who cut in front of you in the short line at the grocery store with the full cart. Okay. Under your breath, whisper yes if you could identify with any of these. You thought, this pain is bad. You pretended the pain didn't exist. You suffered in silence, feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders. The good news is you're not alone. I recently witnessed a woman, Sarah, fight for 8 solid months to get custody of her 2 nieces. This after finding out some pretty awful things had been happening to them at home. The girls, they were 15 and 16. They came into her home with plenty of emotional pain. And the small hope things would get better. At one point, Sarah was encouraged to get some help in dealing with the difficulty of the situation. My dad is an engineer. I am an accountant. We don't do emotions. You're still human, aren't you? You know, it wasn't surprising that just a few months later, she realized that simply putting the girls in a different environment wasn't enough. She was in over her head, and so she sent them away. Refused to say goodbye, defriended them on Facebook, disconnected completely. Maybe then the pain would be gone. As harsh as it may seem, I bet you if we really thought about it, looked in the mirror, we would agree. There are times we don't do emotions. Spoiler alert, avoiding pain doesn't make it go away. It just eats us from the inside out. Now fortunately, pain, it teaches us what pride won't let us learn. Much the same as hurricanes, tornadoes, torrential downpours, they uproot and displace, sometimes even shatter everything. Did you know that in the United States, suicide outnumbers homicide by double? Even more of us are masking our emotional pain with addictions of all sorts. Here's an idea I want you to embrace. Treat your emotional pain the same way you do your physical pain, with urgency. See, we can't quite ignore a toothache, a headache, a heart attack. We deal with these immediately. I imagine you might be thinking, this all sounds good. Heck, it may even feel good. But how? How do I turn toward my pain? Man, I am so glad you asked. There is a 4-part process I've uncovered as I have run toward the burning buildings of my own life. Here it is. Acknowledge, accept, assess, and then act. Acknowledge. It's happening. This shit is real. I'm angry. I'm irritable. I'm sad. Acknowledge the feeling. Accept. Not good, not bad. It's just a feeling. A feeling, by the way, that has a really important job to do. Assess. What are my options? Do I shatter something into a million pieces? Do I go for a long walk? Do I call? And finally, act. Take the action, which is sometimes inaction. Doing nothing might be your best option. In order for this 4-part process to work, you need to slow down the pain. Turn toward it, acknowledge it, accept it, assess your options, and then take the action. See, nature has been serving as a catalyst for growth since the beginning of time. It's been teaching us how to evolve if we just pay attention. With that in mind, I'd like to share with you one of my biggest ahas as it pertains to pain. It comes from Joel Salatin. He's the farmer, a sustainable farmer who runs Polyface Farms, which is down in Shenandoah Valley, about 3 hours south of here. I'm out visiting his farm one day. You guys, it is beautiful. Lush, green pastures. And Joel's explaining how he rotates his animals to ensure for the best possible ecosystem, like for the animals, for the land, for you and me. He says first you bring the cows through. They graze all they want, and then the chickens and the turkeys, they peck and scratch away, right? Get their bugs. He says by the time we get the last set of animals through, you'll barely be able to tell there was ever grass here. That's when his words hit me like a ton of bricks. He said disruption is critical for growth. As you turn towards your pain, I challenge you to heed the words of farmer Joel Salatin. Let the disruptions of your life be a catalyst for your growth. Thank you.